You could feel it the moment she walked into the courtroom. The air shifted. This wasn't going to be a typical day filled with legal jargon, rehearsed testimonies, and cold legal strategies. No, something was different. The buzz of conversation halted. Phones stopped vibrating. Reporters paused mid-sentence. Heads turned all at once, and a silence blanketed the room. All eyes were fixed on the young girl who had just stepped through the door, the daughter of Teyana Taylor and Iman Shumpert. She didn't arrive with cameras following her. No flashing lights, no media frenzy, just a child walking into a space built for adults, about to do something no one had anticipated, speak her truth. And that truth would change everything. For weeks, the courtroom had been charged with tension. Iman Shumpert had launched an aggressive push for full custody, backed by a legal team determined to paint Teyana as unstable, overly emotional, and unfit to parent. They spun a narrative, one familiar and easy to digest. The struggling mother versus the responsible, grounded father. A story tailored for headlines and custody wins. But when their daughter took the stand, that entire narrative started to unravel. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. There were no theatrics. What came from her was something far more powerful. Honesty. Pure and unfiltered. Her voice was steady, her tone soft. And then she said the sentence that changed the trajectory of the entire case. Mom takes care of me, even when she's sad. That one line hit the room like a thunderclap. You can see pens stop mid-sentence. Lawyers froze. Even Iman's jaw visibly tightened, as though the words landed with a weight he hadn't expected. Across the room, Teyana pressed a hand to her chest and took a deep breath, fighting back the tears that threatened to break through. The impact of that moment wasn't in its volume. It was in its sincerity. A child, without anger or accusation, had just delivered a truth more piercing than any attorney could. And then came the unexpected turn. With the same gentle clarity, the girl added, "Mom's friend is really nice to me. He makes me feel safe. No name, no backstory. But the courtroom didn't need one." Everyone knew who she was talking about. Aaron Pierre, the quiet, respectful man Teyana had been seeing. The same man Iman's legal team had framed as a distraction, a negative influence, an intruder in the family dynamic. Aaron sat quietly at the back of the room. He didn't wear a flashy suit. He didn't wave or react. He simply listened, present, composed, and silent. But his stillness, that choice not to perform or take up space, said more than words ever could. It showed a kind of support that couldn't be faked. And when the girl spoke of him, his only reaction was a tiny, nearly imperceptible shift, like someone trying not to cry. That moment didn't go unnoticed, and it spoke volumes. Iman, meanwhile, looked shaken, not out of anger, but confusion. Because what he prepared for, what his team had rehearsed, wasn't this. His daughter hadn't attacked him, but she hadn't defended him either. She hadn't called him unsafe, but she hadn't said he made her feel safe either. And that silence, that absence of reassurance, said everything. One reporter watching from the gallery tweeted, "Iman looked like a man who just realized the rules of the game changed, and he didn't know the new ones." That tweet went viral because it was true. The courtroom wasn't playing by his team's rules anymore. The script they'd written, the one where Teyana was unstable and Iman was the rock, had just been thrown out. When the girl mentioned Aaron, Iman's team jumped to object. They argued that it was inappropriate for a child to comment on adult relationships. But the judge stared them down and replied simply, "The emotional context matters." It wasn't just a legal ruling. It was a shift in perspective. The court had decided to listen, to really listen. What followed was not a dramatic monologue, but a series of quiet truths. The girl talked about how her mom still helped her with homework, even when she'd been crying. How she made her favorite pancakes the morning after a fight with Iman. Little things, intimate moments. But together, they formed a mosaic of a home that, while imperfect, was clearly full of love and effort. The lawyers on Iman's side began to fumble, whispering, passing notes, flipping through paperwork. But Iman didn't glance at a single sheet. His eyes stayed locked on his daughter. He watched, helplessly, as she unknowingly dismantled every accusation they'd made. At one point, she said quietly, "I don't like it when they fight. But Mom always tells me it's never because of me." That line hit like a punch to the gut. The judge nodded solemnly. Teyana wiped her eyes, and Iman sat stiff, veins bulging in his neck. Because the little girl wasn't being dramatic, she was being real. And there's nothing more powerful than that in a courtroom. Many expected her to speak briefly, say something neutral, like she loved both parents, and step down. But she stayed, she kept going. Her voice cracked at times. She fidgeted. She looked at her mom for reassurance. All signs of a child being genuine, not rehearsed. She didn't say anything cruel about her dad, but she didn't make him the hero of her story either. That neutrality, that emotional distance, spoke louder than any insult ever could. It wasn't what she said about Iman that shook the courtroom. It was what she didn't say. Meanwhile, Aaron Pierre remained still, quiet, unbothered by the attention. His only reaction was when his name came up, that slight shift. And it was that kind of presence, understated, loyal, human, that resonated the most. He didn't try to replace anyone. He simply showed up. And in a room full of people trying to argue their worth, his quiet loyalty stood out. By the time the girl finished, the courtroom felt different, softer, more intimate. What had started as a cold legal battle had turned into something else entirely, a raw, unfiltered moment of humanity. The judge looked at her and thanked her, not just for testifying, but for her bravery. And the room, once buzzing with strategy and spin, fell into another stunned silence, this time out of respect. Later that day, a courtroom sketch of Iman went viral. He was depicted with his face in his hands, posture slumped. Not just as a man who'd lost a custody hearing, but as someone who realized he'd lost the narrative. He'd been outmaneuvered not by a lawyer, but by the truth of a child. Social media exploded. Hashtags like #BraveQueen and #ProtectBlackGirls trended within hours. TikToks dissected the testimony like it was a true crime moment. And outside the courthouse, people gathered with signs of support for Teyana and her daughter. It wasn't just about custody anymore. It was about being seen. And Teyana, long reduced to a tabloid headline, had finally been heard through her daughter's voice. An inside source from Teyana's team said they walked out of court with something bigger than confidence. They walked out with clarity. One friend posted, "She didn't coach her kid. She listened to her." There's a difference. That comment blew up because it captured the heart of the moment. This wasn't manipulation. It wasn't performance. It was truth. And truth, when it comes from a child, is undeniable. Iman's side didn't take it well. Some family members allegedly called the judge reckless. Others claimed the girl had been coached. But the court saw through that. Her testimony wasn't polished. It was human, real, vulnerable. And that's what made it powerful. Legal experts appeared on morning shows the next day, calling the case unprecedented. One said, "Children rarely testify in custody battles. And when they do, they almost never sway the outcome. But this time, it changed everything." The judge didn't rule that day. He simply thanked the girl again and said he needed more time. But in many ways, the decision had already been made. The court had seen past the performance, past the strategy, and into something honest. Outside, as the crowd cheered, Aaron Pierre quietly slipped out the side entrance. No press, no quotes, just quiet, consistent presence. And in a world full of noise, that kind of silence can be deafening. This wasn't just a courtroom drama. It was a moment of reckoning. A reminder that not all battles are won through strategy or money. Some are won through truth. And a little girl, standing up in a courtroom, reminded us all of that. She may not have been the loudest voice in the room, but she was the one everyone listened to.